She was lost until a millionaire widower asked the question that changed everything. Before we begin, I want to know where you're watching from. Comment your city, your state, or even your country. If you enjoy love stories with drama, resilience, and heartwarming endings, subscribe to the channel. That way, you help this space grow and make sure new stories reach you every week. The snow was falling heavily when Harper stepped off the bus at the Denver terminal, clutching Ellie to her chest as if the baby were the only source of warmth she had left. The icy wind cut through the thin fabric of her coat, biting her skin and making her fingers tremble. Ellie started to cry first softly, then with the sharp, distressed wail of a baby who senses something is wrong. Harper tried to soothe her, but her own breath came out shaky, the frigid air burning her throat as if winter had teeth. She looked around the platform. Hurried people passed by without noticing, each wrapped up in their own lives. No one paid attention to her. No one saw the exhausted young mother with deep dark circles under her eyes and messy hair hastily tied back, trying to keep her baby warm in a coat that was barely good enough for fall, let alone Colorado's ruthless winter. Harper felt a tightness in her chest as she realized she had nowhere to go. No friends, no family waiting for her, no phone calls she could make. All she had left were the suitcases at her feet and the baby in her arms. The weight of that reality twisted her stomach as if despair had invisible hands squeezing her insides. As she adjusted Ellie to shield her better from the wind, the baby sobbed and rested her trembling little head on her mother's shoulder. Her cry wasn't just from the cold. It was as if Ellie could feel Harper's fear and anguish, reflecting it in every whimper, every shallow breath. Harper closed her eyes for a moment. The exhaustion from the past few days, the long journey, the emotional toll of the betrayal she had suffered, the feeling of being hunted for something she didn't do at all hit her at once. It was as if the world was crushing her shoulders. She took a deep breath, forcing the air into her lungs, and murmured with a shaky but firm voice, just loud enough for Ellie to hear, "My love, I promise I'll protect you, even if I have to face the world alone." Those words echoed inside her with a mix of strength and vulnerability. Harper had always been resilient, but now she was broken in places she didn't even know could hurt. The frustration over the injustice she endured, the humiliation of losing everything, the guilt for not seeing it coming, each memory was a knife twisting in her heart. She adjusted the blanket wrapped around Ellie and pulled the suitcase handle with difficulty. The slippery ground made every step a battle. The feeling of abandonment was worse than the cold. It felt like being in a foreign country, even though she was still in her own. Harper walked to the bus station entrance, hoping to find some sign of hope, but all she saw were glowing signs, taxi drivers who didn't look her way, and people coming and going without noticing her presence. "I just need a warm place, just a safe place for her," she whispered, looking at Ellie, who was now murmuring softly, worn out from crying. But there was nothing but the snow, the wind, and the crushing feeling of being completely alone. Deep down, Harper felt like she was falling apart, as if everything holding her together was about to collapse. She wanted to scream, to ask for help, but her voice was just a painful sigh lost in the cold mist escaping her mouth. On the outside, she tried to appear strong. On the inside, she was shattered. The automatic door of the bus station opened with a gust of icy air, carrying away what little warmth Harper had tried to preserve in her body. She walked a few steps outside, but the wind hit so hard that Ellie started crying again, desperate. Harper rocked her gently, trying to stay calm, though she was on the verge of breaking down once more. The sound of cars passing on the nearby avenue mixed with the crunch of snow underfoot, creating a cold, harsh melody typical of Denver's winter streets. She paused on the sidewalk, trying to decide whether to take a few more steps or go back inside the station. But before she could move her foot, a black SUV approached, slowing down as it neared the traffic light right in front of her. The car, large and elegant, seemed out of place in the gray, chaotic setting. Its headlights reflected off the falling snow, casting a nearly cinematic glow over Harper and Ellie. Inside the vehicle, Nathan Prescott gripped the steering wheel tightly. His face, marked by faint dark circles and a distant expression, revealed sleepless nights and too many quiet days. He wore a heavy wool coat and leather gloves, yet he still seemed cold inside, a chill that came from a place where snow never melted: loss. Since his wife had passed, nothing had filled the constant void that followed him. When he stopped at the light, he turned his head absent-mindedly, not really looking for anything, until his eyes landed on something that made his heart skip a beat. A young woman held a baby with a desperation he hadn't seen in a long time. Her face showed a blend of fear and courage, as if she were fighting an entire world all at once. Her hair was hastily tied back, and her face bore the marks of deep exhaustion. Still, there was something in her eyes, a silent plea for help that hit Nathan like an unexpected blow. He blinked, confused by the intensity of the moment. He hadn't felt anything so strong since losing his wife, but right then, in that frozen instant, something stirred inside him, almost like an involuntary reflex. Without thinking too much, Nathan turned off his hazard lights, opened the door, and stepped out, letting the snow fall on his shoulders like some kind of baptism. Harper instinctively stepped back, pulling Ellie tighter to her chest. The wind hit his face, but that wasn't what made him hesitate. It was the fear of scaring her. He raised his hand slowly, showing he meant no harm. His voice came out low, deep, tinged with a melancholy Harper didn't immediately understand. "You need help?" She didn't answer right away. Her eyes scanned his every move. In Nathan's expression, there was kindness, but also pain. It was as if he, despite the obvious luxury of the car behind him, carried a burden like hers, just in a different shape. Harper swallowed hard. I'm fine," she said, failing to hide the tremble in her voice. But Ellie began to cry louder, her tiny mouth opening in a distressed wail that echoed down the empty sidewalk. The sound cut through Harper like an emotional blade. She tried to rock the baby, but her arms were so tired she barely had the strength. Nathan took a step forward. "She's cold." "You are too," he said gently. "Let me help. You don't have to tell me anything right now. Just get in the car. It's too cold for you to be out here." Harper felt a wave of distrust rise. No one helps a stranger like this. No one looks at her with that much sincerity. No one offers warmth without expecting something in return. But when she looked at Ellie, trembling and shrinking into her blanket, she realized she had no choice. Her daughter's life was more important than any fear. Nathan extended his hand, not to touch her, but to show the way. "Please," he said, and his voice cracked a little, as if the request carried a meaning even he didn't fully understand. Harper took a deep breath. It was risky. It was terrifying. But it was also the first time someone really seemed to see her. "Oh, okay," she whispered. She got into the car, feeling the warmth wrap around her body like an unexpected hug. Nathan walked around and got in too. Before driving, he turned to her and said, in a tone that sent a shiver through her, "I promise you're safe now." Harper didn't know why, but she believed him. And that was the exact moment when everything would change. Nathan drove silently through the snow-covered avenues until he found a cafe still open in the early hours of the morning. The yellow lights of the sign reflected on the wet sidewalk, creating a warm and welcoming contrast amid the relentless cold. Harper stepped out of the car, carefully holding Ellie as the icy breeze hit her already reddened face. Nathan opened the door so she could enter, and the warmth of the cafe wrapped around them like an unexpected embrace. The cafe was simple, with wooden tables, the smell of freshly brewed coffee, and a few lonely people scattered in corners, each lost in their own silent world. Harper chose a table near the heater so Ellie wouldn't feel cold. The baby fell asleep after a few minutes, snuggled in her blanket, while Nathan ordered something warm for them both. When the waiter left, Nathan pulled out a chair and sat across from her. For the first time, he was able to truly observe her. Harper had delicate features, but there was something wounded in her eyes, like she had lost more than just material things. Her ash blonde hair was hastily tied back, with a few strands falling softly across her face. Her hands trembled slightly, not just from the cold, but from the emotional weight she carried. "If you want, you can tell me what happened," Nathan said, his voice so gentle it seemed he feared any harsh word might break her. Harper took a deep breath, her eyes welling up before she even began. It was hard to revisit the pain, but even harder to carry it alone. I used to work at a small company," she began, her voice faltering. "It was all I had. I believed I was building something for me and Ellie, but the person I trusted most betrayed me." Nathan leaned forward slightly, fully attentive, as if listening was the only thing that mattered in the world at that moment. "He stole everything I had saved, all my money. And worse, he made it look like I was involved. My name is ruined, Nathan. I've become a fugitive for something I didn't do." She clutched Ellie's blanket, drawing strength from her daughter's small body. "I had to leave the state before I was officially charged. I lost my job, lost my home, lost my peace." The tears finally fell, silently streaming down her pale face. Harper wiped them quickly, ashamed. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to fall apart like this." Nathan felt something stir deep in his chest, as if her pain had awakened a part of him that had long been numb. It wasn't just sympathy. It was something stronger, something more intimate. He couldn't explain it, but he felt a need to protect her from everything. "You don't have to apologize," he said, his voice low and sincere. "No one should go through something like this alone." They sat in silence for a moment, the kind of silence that doesn't feel awkward, but rather connective. Harper looked away, unsure of herself, and Nathan saw how fragile she was, trying to hold on to a life that kept slipping through her fingers. When the food arrived, Harper tried to eat, but the knot in her throat made it almost impossible. Still, Nathan waited patiently, as if he was there for something much greater than just keeping her company. At the end of the conversation, Nathan reached into his wallet and placed a hotel card on the table. Harper's eyes widened. "No, I can't accept this," she said quickly, pushing the card back. "I don't want you to think I'm using you." Nathan pushed the card back to her, this time with more firmness, but not harshly. "Harper, look at me." She raised her eyes and he held her gaze with a calm that completely disarmed her. "This isn't charity, it's humanity. You have a little girl and you've just lived through a nightmare. I don't know why I feel this, but I want to help you." The way he said it, so raw, so genuine, made something inside her both break and come back together. It wasn't pity. It wasn't obligation. It was real concern. It was care. Harper brought a hand to her mouth, trying to hold back the tears that rose with force. But they came anyway, this time warm, releasing. It was the first time in months someone had done something for her without expecting anything in return. "Thank you," she whispered, barely audible. Nathan stood, adjusted his coat, and simply said, "I'll take you to the hotel. Then I'll give you time to rest. You both deserve a peaceful night." When he stepped out of the cafe to get the car, Harper hugged Ellie and cried softly, but it wasn't despair. It was relief. It was hope. And it was, without fully understanding it, yet the beginning of something new. Nathan parked in front of the hotel where he had secured 3 nights for Harper and Ellie. The lit-up facade stood in stark contrast to the biting cold outside, and for a brief moment, Harper believed just maybe she could breathe again. He helped her out of the car, carrying the suitcases while she adjusted her sleeping daughter in her arms. The warmth of the lobby brought instant relief, but the peace that should have come with that comfort never truly settled in. In the days that followed, Harper did everything she could to rebuild her life. She looked for jobs, searched for rooms to rent, even made some phone calls to explain her situation. But every response was short, hesitant, ending in that same cold, awkward silence. The weight of suspicion seemed to follow her everywhere. And then, on the 3rd morning at the hotel, everything finally collapsed. She was in the lobby, using the public computer to browse job listings when a notification popped up on her phone. It was from an old coworker, one of the few who still showed her some kindness. The message said the fraud case had hit the internet, and she was now being officially named as a possible accomplice. The floor seemed to vanish beneath her feet. Harper felt her whole body shake as she read the message, her heart thudding in her chest. Ellie, sensing her mother's tension, began to fuss softly. Harper scooped her up immediately, but her hands trembled so badly she could barely hold her. "No, this can't be happening," she murmured, voice barely audible, as if speaking to someone far away. "I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything." Her eyes began to sting. Her breath came short. It felt like falling off an endless cliff all over again. She needed to tell Nathan. He had been the only light in all the chaos, the only one who truly seemed to believe her. She rushed upstairs and, with shaking fingers, called him. Nathan answered on the 2nd ring, and just hearing his voice made something inside her collapse. "Harper? Are you okay? Nathan, can you come? Please." Her voice broke at the end. He understood instantly that something serious had happened. He said only that he'd be right there. It took less than 15 minutes for him to walk through the door, still wearing his coat, face tense with worry. When he saw her curled up in the corner of the bed, clutching Ellie as if trying to protect her from the air itself, Nathan's stomach twisted. "Harper, what happened?" She raised her phone with effort, showing him the message as if it were a death sentence. They think I was part of the fraud," she said, each word scraping her throat. "My ex-partner put my name on the documents. I don't know how he did it, but he did. They're saying I helped him. They're saying I was involved." Ellie began to cry louder, sensing her mother's breakdown. Harper held her tighter, panicked, and broke down completely. "They're going to take her from me, Nathan. If they think I'm guilty, they'll take my baby. I can't lose her." Nathan walked toward her as if drawn by something inevitable. He sat beside her, moving slowly so as not to startle her, and placed a hand gently on her shoulder, firm but careful, with a tenderness that sent an emotional shiver through her. "Look at me," he said, leaning in until their eyes met. Harper lifted her face, and seeing her own brokenness reflected in his gaze made her even more vulnerable. "I didn't do anything," she sobbed. "I swear I didn't, but no one believes me." Nathan felt a tightness in his chest, intense and unfamiliar. There was pain there, yes, but also a strength he hadn't felt in years. "Harper, I'm not going to let that happen. I promise." She closed her eyes for a moment, as if those words had the power to hold her world together. When she opened them again, a single tear slipped down her cheek. "Why are you doing all this for me?" she asked, her voice more fragile than he'd ever heard. Nathan took her arms gently, offering stability, safety, and something deeper he couldn't yet name. "Because you don't deserve to go through this alone," he said without hesitation. "And because I believe you." For the first time since arriving in Denver, Harper's body relaxed, as if his presence were an invisible shield against the storm closing in on her. Her heart, so used to pain, beat differently, dangerously so. Hopefully so. Nathan stayed with her, holding her, while Ellie slowly drifted back to sleep in her mother's arms. The silence in the room was heavy with emotion, almost tangible, as if something far bigger than both of them was unfolding quietly between breaths. And in the stillness, one truth was clear: nothing in their lives would ever be the same after that moment. Nathan stayed with Harper and Ellie until their breathing had calmed. When he realized the hotel no longer offered the safety Harper needed, he made a quiet decision. The next morning, he came to the room to pick them up. The firmness in his expression made it clear this wasn't a request, it was protection. "Come with me. You'll be okay," he said, in a tone that carried more than concern, it carried a sense of belonging. Nathan's property was on the outskirts of Denver, surrounded by tall trees that sheltered the main house and a charming guest house built of light wood with wide windows. Harper was left speechless when she saw it, not because it was extravagant, but because of the peace that seemed to live in the place. "It's too big for me and Ellie," she murmured, feeling a mix of gratitude and hesitation. Nathan opened the door, inviting them in. "Too big to be empty. I'd rather see life inside." The phrase struck Harper in an unexpected way. The first days passed like a breeze, each one leaving subtle marks that Harper tried, in vain, to ignore. In the small kitchen, Nathan made coffee every morning. He was meticulous, always adjusting the strength to her liking after noticing, without her saying, that she preferred it mild. "Brought this for you," he said one day, handing her a steaming mug. "Thank you," Harper replied, feeling the warmth of the coffee and the warmth of him blend together. It was a simple gesture, but so consistent it became part of her routine, as if she'd never lived without it. One morning, he found a folded shirt on the living room sofa. "You did this?" he asked, holding the garment between his fingers. "I saw it lying around," Harper said, a little embarrassed for intruding, "and thought you might be busy." Nathan smiled in that rare, soft way of his. "I'm glad you're starting to feel comfortable here." That was when Harper realized she was starting to see his smile as something precious. But nothing affected her as much as the scene she witnessed one quiet afternoon. Nathan was sitting on the couch with Ellie asleep on his chest. The baby rested peacefully, her tiny face pressed against his shirt. Nathan, in turn, had one hand resting lightly on her back, making slow, instinctive motions while reading some reports on the laptop beside him. Harper stood frozen in the doorway, unable to interrupt. The sight of a man like Nathan Strong, serious, marked by pain holding her daughter as if she were his own, made her heart tremble. It was as if Ellie had found an instant home against his chest. She swallowed hard, overwhelmed by a rush of emotions she couldn't quite name. Something was starting to grow inside her. Something forbidden, dangerous, unexpected. Later that day, as Harper washed the dishes after dinner, Nathan came into the kitchen. The sound of running water and the comfortable silence filled the room. He stepped behind her to grab a glass from the cabinet above the sink. His body came so close to hers that she felt his warmth against her back. The scent of his woodsy cologne wrapped around her. Their hands nearly touched as he reached for the glass. Harper paused for a second, trying to control the sudden rise of her breath. Nathan also stilled, fully aware of the closeness of what it meant if he stepped away or if he didn't. "Sorry," he murmured, his voice low and rough. "It's okay," Harper whispered, unable to move. The silence that followed was thick, dense with something neither of them was ready to name. For several long seconds, neither of them stepped back. And in that suspended moment, everything felt possible and at the same time, far too dangerous. Harper tried to keep her mind busy washing dishes, folding Ellie's tiny clothes, tidying the guest house, but the image of that almost touch with Nathan refused to fade. No matter how much she fought it, the feeling growing inside her showed up in his gestures, in the quiet moments they shared, in the way Nathan looked at Ellie as if she were already a part of him. But the closer Harper got, the more she began to notice something that made her pull back. One morning, while walking to the main house to return one of Nathan's shirts left in the dryer, she stepped through the half-open door and immediately caught a scent in the air, soft, sweet, floral. Not a candle. Not cleaning products. It was something personal, intimate, feminine. Harper walked slowly down the hallway and saw a bottle of perfume sitting untouched on a counter, but very much present. Beside it was a small music box. She opened it, and a delicate melody floated into the room like a sad memory. On the coffee table, a photo frame held a picture of a young woman, beautiful, brown-haired, smiling at the camera with Nathan's arms around her waist. They looked happy, deeply connected. His wife. Harper's throat tightened. She knew Nathan was a widower, but seeing the physical proof of the love he had lost was something else entirely. It was as if the world whispered cruelly, "You don't belong here." As she stared at the photo, she heard footsteps down the hall. Nathan appeared, wearing a pale blue shirt, towel still in hand, drying his damp hair. When he saw her there, his expression shifted surprise, then visible discomfort. "Harper, do you need something?" he asked, trying to keep his tone neutral, but his stiff posture gave him away. She raised the shirt in her hands. "Just came to return this. It was in the dryer." Nathan's eyes flicked briefly to the shirt, then quickly to the photo behind her. He held his breath for just a second, almost imperceptible, but it carried weight. "Thank you," he said, taking the shirt from her hands, his fingers narrowly avoiding touching hers. She felt the distance. He didn't really look at her, not like before. It was like something invisible had risen between them. "I'm sorry if I came into a place I shouldn't have," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Nathan opened his mouth to speak, then hesitated. He only said, "It's fine." But it wasn't. The silence that followed said everything. Harper left the main house with a tightness in her chest she hadn't expected. Being around him had awakened something in her, something dangerous. And now, everything felt clearer. The shadow of his wife was everywhere, in the perfume, in the framed memories, in the way the house still held her presence like a breath that hadn't fully left, and Harper didn't want to compete with a ghost. She didn't want to fool herself into thinking she had any real place here. That night, Ellie took longer to fall asleep. Harper rocked her gently, trying to hide the tears slipping down her cheeks. "This isn't for me," she murmured, unsure if she was speaking to herself or to her daughter. "I'm just passing through." When Ellie finally drifted off, Harper lay beside her in the small bed of the guest house. The darkness felt heavier than usual. And maybe, just because she needed to speak to someone, even if that someone was only 6 months old, she whispered into the shadows, "He's too kind and I can't fall in love with him." What she didn't know was that Nathan, who had stepped out onto the porch of the main house to breathe in the cold night air, had heard every word. The guest house window had been left slightly open, and her confession had slipped into the breeze straight to him. Nathan stood frozen, heart pounding, torn between the grief of a past that still gripped him and the impact of Harper's words she never meant for him to hear. He didn't sleep that night. He lay awake staring at the ceiling, haunted by the echo of a truth neither of them could unfeel now. The days following that night on the porch were marked by a heavy silence. Harper avoided looking at Nathan for too long, afraid her feelings might become too visible. Nathan, in turn, battled his own conscience torn between the weight of a past that still haunted him and the growing force of her presence in his life. Their routine carried on, balanced on a fragile thread, until one cold afternoon, 3 firm knocks echoed on the guesthouse door. The sound cut through the room like a blade. Harper, who had been playing on the rug with Ellie, froze. Her expression changed instantly, as if her body recognized a threat her mind hadn't yet processed. She opened the door slowly, holding Ellie close to her chest. 2 women from social services stood on the porch, dressed in dark coats, clipboards in hand. Their faces were neutral, almost hard, like they were used to walking into crumbling homes. "Are you Harper Quinn?" asked the older of the 2, flashing an official badge. "Yes," Harper replied, her voice swallowing its own breath. "We've received a report regarding your situation. We're here to assess the child's well-being, considering your ongoing investigation and lack of stable employment." The floor disappeared from beneath her. The weight of those words hit Harper like a physical blow. Ellie, sensing the shift in her mother's energy, clutched at her coat, letting out a soft whimper. "No, please don't do this," Harper whispered, holding Ellie tighter, instinctively shielding her. "I take care of my daughter. I've raised her alone since the day she was born. I would do anything for her." The younger woman scribbled something on the clipboard without looking up. The older one continued, calmly, "This is only an evaluation, but depending on the findings, temporary custody may be reconsidered until your legal situation is resolved." Air caught in Harper's chest. The pain that rose wasn't just emotional, it was visceral, deep. Like something had reached inside her and torn her heart out at the root. Nathan arrived at that exact moment, coming from the main house. When he saw the women at the door, he quickened his pace. "What's going on?" he asked, worry lacing every word. The older woman responded coolly, "We're assessing the child's environment until Miss Quinn's legal and professional matters are cleared." Harper turned toward him, and Nathan had never seen so much desperation in someone's eyes. It was a silent cry for help, almost animal. "They want to take my baby," she said, and her voice crumbled on the last word. "Nathan, they want to take Ellie." Her body started to tremble. Her breathing unraveled. The mother in her took over, clutching Ellie so tightly it looked like she was trying to fuse them into one person to make separation impossible. "They can't take her, Nathan. I'd rather die." Her sobs came hard and fast, Ellie crying along with her. The scene was devastating. A mother shattered, fighting with every ounce of herself for the one thing she had left. That was when Nathan moved, without thought, without doubt. He stepped forward and wrapped Harper in his arms, pulling her close like someone catching another just before they fall. For the first time, he didn't keep distance. He didn't hold back emotion. He didn't hide the vulnerability that was rising with the surge of protectiveness. "Harper, look at me," he said, cupping her face with his warm hands, trying to bring her breath back to her chest. "I'm not going to let this happen. I swear, I would do anything to protect you." She sobbed uncontrollably, her face buried against his chest, Ellie tucked tightly between them. Her anguish cut through Nathan like a blade, but it also awakened something fierce in him, something he hadn't felt in a very long time. The social workers observed the scene quietly. But before they could say anything else, Nathan's voice rose, calm but uncheckable. "She's not alone. The baby is safe. You'll have all the documents you need." The intensity of the moment hung in the air like electricity before a storm. And in that embrace, Harper trembling, Ellie whimpering, and Nathan holding them both like the world was trying to rip them from him, something broke free between them. Something that had been too quiet to deny and now too powerful to contain. Something that, from this moment forward, would change everything. Nathan spent the next few days as if he were living inside a silent tornado. Even when walking through the house, signing documents, talking to lawyers, or answering emails, his mind always returned to the same image: Harper collapsing in his arms, holding Ellie as if the world were trying to rip her soul away. Every time he remembered that scene, his chest tightened in a way no grief, no previous pain had ever caused. It was a new feeling, intense, unsettling. It felt like fear, but it also felt like love. He began avoiding sleep, as if rest could pull him away from the urgency burning inside him. Every night he would pace on the porch, letting the cold wind hit his face while he searched for a solution. Every possibility that came to mind felt too fragile, too risky, too unfair to Harper. Until one sleepless night, an idea struck him with brutal clarity. A reckless idea, sudden, impossible to ignore. He needed to protect them. He needed to make sure no one could threaten Ellie. He needed to prevent Harper from being torn away from his life. Deep down, he had to admit what he'd been trying to deny ever since the day he found her shivering in the cold at the Denver bus station. He was falling in love with her. The next morning, Nathan walked into the guest house before Harper had even finished setting the breakfast table. She was holding Ellie, dressed in a simple blouse with her hair tied back. Yet somehow she looked even more beautiful that day, maybe because fear made her human in a way he could no longer ignore. Harper noticed immediately that something was different. Nathan's eyes held a fierce determination, almost desperate. "Nathan?" she asked, confused. He closed the door behind him and stepped forward until he stood directly in front of her. When he took her shoulders in his hands, Harper felt them trembling not from cold, but intensity. "Harper," he began, taking a breath, "I need to ask you something." Her heart sped up painfully. "What is it?" He didn't look away. He didn't blink. He didn't hesitate. "Harper, marry me." Her world stopped. She went so still that Ellie, sensing the sudden silence, lifted her tiny head to look at her mother. Harper blinked several times, trying to process what she had just heard. "Nathan," she whispered, "what are you saying? How could you mean that?" He raked a hand through his hair, breathing unevenly, as if the words inside him burned. "I know it sounds insane. I know it's fast. I know your life is upside down, but if you're my wife, you have stability. You have legal protection. Social services can't do anything, and Ellie stays with you. She stays safe." Harper lifted a hand to her mouth, feeling the floor shift beneath her feet. "Are you saying this out of pity?" she asked, voice trembling. "Out of obligation?" Nathan stepped closer and held her face gently, making sure she looked at him. "No, not pity. Not obligation." His voice cracked, revealing the emotion he was trying to control. "I feel something for you. Something I've tried to ignore since the first day. And I don't want to lose you." Tears filled Harper's eyes before she could stop them. Ellie started playing with her necklace, unaware of the gravity of the moment. "I don't know what to do," Harper breathed. "It's all so fast. So intense, so dangerous." "I know," he whispered, resting his forehead against hers. "But I also know you don't deserve to go through this alone, and that I couldn't stand watching you and Ellie walk out of this house, out of my life." Harper closed her eyes, feeling his fingers slide down her shoulders, the warmth of his touch stabilizing her trembling body. Even breathing became difficult. She was torn between fear and the overwhelming feeling she had tried so hard to silence. And in the quiet of that moment, inside that small guest house that already felt like home, Harper understood that her life had just turned down a path with no return, a path where love and danger walk side by side. Nathan moved like a man on fire. The morning after his proposal, he didn't wait for sunrise to fade before setting his plan in motion. He had placed his entire heart into Harper's hands, but he would never let fear, injustice, or any outside force threaten the only family that had begun to form before his very eyes. Before Harper even awoke, he was already downtown, walking into the sleek, glass-walled office of Blake Harrison, his longtime lawyer, the same man who'd stood by him through the darkest years after his wife's death. The atmosphere in the office was razor-sharp, polished floors, silent assistants, the hum of multi-million-dollar deals in the air. But Blake immediately sensed this was different. When Nathan entered, his jaw tight and gaze burning, Blake knew something massive was coming. "I need you to dig into everything about the accusation against Harper," Nathan said, no preamble, no hesitation. Every document, every transaction, every name involved. Blake removed his glasses, meeting Nathan's stare with a grim firmness. "Are you sure? This could open doors you may not want to walk through." "Open all of them," Nathan replied. "I won't stop until I find out who did this to her." Blake nodded. And the work began. Hours passed in a storm of investigations, calls, encrypted messages, and data cross-checking. Blake reached into circles only the powerful could access. The sun began to dip, and the air in the room grew heavier with every passing report. Then Blake looked up from an extensive file, his face darker than Nathan had ever seen. "We found it." Nathan's pulse jumped. "Who?" Blake exhaled, slow and deliberate. It wasn't just Harper's ex-partner. That man didn't have the brains, infrastructure, or motivation to pull this off alone. He had support, funding, and not from just anyone. Nathan's jaw locked. From who? Blake turned the tablet toward him, displaying a photo. A tall man with neatly combed dark hair, a perfect gray suit, and a cold smile mid-applause at a business conference. "Gregory Malden," Blake said, CEO of Malden Tech. "Your direct competitor." Nathan felt the air punch out of the room. Malden was ruthless in the tech world, notorious for ethical gray zones and a win-at-any-cost mindset, but framing an innocent woman just to sabotage a rival? It was something monstrous. "Why Harper?" Nathan whispered, shaken. Blake tapped to another page. "She worked in a vulnerable department. Easy to manipulate. But more than that, getting you close to her meant dragging you into the scandal. Harper was the bait." Blake's gaze was somber. "You were the real target all along." The revelation hit Nathan like a freight train. He stood up abruptly, the chair scraping hard against the floor. His blood boiled. His heart pounded. And the fire inside him ignited fully. They used her. They used her daughter. Just to destroy me? Blake nodded slowly. Yes, because they knew you wouldn't fight back right away. Not when you were emotionally compromised. Vulnerable, Nathan spat. They have no idea how much. Later that same day, Nathan walked straight into the Malden Tech headquarters. He didn't schedule a meeting. Didn't announce himself. He stormed through the front doors with a lethal calm, eyes blazing with contained fury. Employees turned away, recognizing him instantly. Gregory appeared moments later, adjusting his tie as he stepped into the glass hallway. He was smug, prepared for a verbal duel. Nathan Prescott. I wasn't expecting a visit. Nathan stopped just inches away from him. The tension was suffocating. You ruined the life of an innocent woman, Nathan said, voice low but sharp as a blade. Just to get to me. Just to smear my name. Just to win. Gregory raised an eyebrow with feigned innocence. It's just business, Prescott. In the big game, pieces get sacrificed. She's not a piece, Nathan growled, narrowing his eyes. and I'm going to expose everything you did." Color drained from Gregory's face. "You don't have the guts." Nathan stepped even closer, his voice now like steel. "I have more than enough to end you." The threat wasn't empty. Within hours, Nathan released the evidence to the press. His legal team launched formal complaints. And in a calm, powerful statement broadcast publicly, he defended Harper, told the truth, and named names. The response was immediate. Harper's name was cleared. Malden Tech came under federal investigation. The ex-partner vanished, and everything flipped. That night, Nathan returned home. He was exhausted, wearing the weight of everything that had happened, but in his eyes burned a fierce, new kind of determination. In the guest house, Harper was wrapping Ellie in a blanket when she saw him. She stood quickly, eyes wide, as if bracing for another storm. Nathan stepped forward slowly but not hesitantly. He looked like a man who had fought a war and come back not broken, but ready. "You're free, Harper," he said, voice steady but full of feeling. "No one's going to take you away from me, from us." That word has cracked through the air like thunder, quiet and warm and impossible to ignore. Harper felt her heart beat so fast she had to steady herself just to stay standing. And in that moment, a new truth settled between them. A truth that couldn't be undone. They were no longer just surviving. They were becoming something impossible to break. Together. Nathan stood frozen in the doorway for a few seconds, as if his body had forgotten how to breathe. The guest house was quiet, lit only by the warm, golden glow of a lamp that painted soft shadows across the walls. Harper, holding Ellie gently in her arms, looked at him with a mix of relief and disbelief. She didn't know whether to cry, smile, or fall to her knees and thank the universe for placing this man in her path. Until now, life had been nothing but pain, struggle, fear, and the constant sense of loss. But something in Nathan's eyes made Harper's heart beat differently. It wasn't just the victory he'd brought back to her. It was something deeper, something he'd carried silently all this time. A love that had been quietly building, unspoken but undeniable. "You're free, Harper," he repeated, his voice low but unwavering, like a vow. "No one's going to take you from me, from us." That word echoed inside her. Us. As if they had always been a family. Tears welled in her eyes before she could stop them. Ellie stirred in her arms, reaching up to touch her mother's face as if sensing the storm of emotion. Harper smiled through the tears, pulling her daughter gently against her chest while Nathan stepped forward. He entered the room, taking off the heavy coat he wore, his shirt wrinkled from the exhausting day. He looked like a man who had just returned from war. His eyes were tired, but there was a new fire in them, a fire Harper had never seen lit for her before. "You didn't have to do all of this," Harper said, voice shaky, clutching Ellie close as if she needed something solid to hold on to. "I don't even know how to thank you." Nathan moved closer until only inches separated them. He lifted his hand and gently wiped a tear from her cheek. The touch was tender, sure, completely unhesitant. "I didn't do it expecting thanks," he said. "I did it because I couldn't bear to see you go through that alone. Because you and Ellie have changed my life in ways I didn't think were possible." Harper swallowed hard. That sentence opened a door inside her that had been locked for years. "Nathan, why are you saying these things?" she asked, voice trembling. "I don't understand why you care so much." He took a deep breath, gathering the courage to uncover the most vulnerable part of himself. "Because I love you." The words hung in the air like something sacred. Harper's eyes widened in shock, her heart racing so hard it nearly hurt. Nathan went on, his voice shaking for the first time in a long time. "I tried to fight it. I tried to stay away. I told myself it was too soon, Too dangerous that I didn't have the right to feel anything after everything I've lost." He reached out and gently lifted her chin, his touch lighting something deep in her soul. "But the truth is, I fell in love with you, with your strength, with the way you hold your daughter even when you're breaking inside, with your courage, Harper. I don't want a future that doesn't have you and Ellie in it." Harper's tears fell like summer rain. Her knees buckled, and Nathan caught her by the waist before she could fall. I feel something for you too," she whispered. "I thought it was wrong, that I was stepping into a place I didn't belong, that I was replacing someone who still lives inside your heart." Nathan paused for a beat. The silence was full of meaning, as if every word he chose carried a lifetime's worth of weight. "She'll always be a part of my story," he said honestly, "but that doesn't mean I can't write a new one. With you, with Ellie. I'm not trying to erase the past, I'm choosing to move forward. And you're the path my heart chose." Harper closed her eyes. The fear, the exhaustion, the ache, all of it began to dissolve in his words. And when she opened them again, Nathan was kneeling before her. Ellie leaned forward in her arms, curious about the motion. From his pocket, Nathan pulled out a small box. The gesture was reverent, like a ritual that gave meaning to his entire journey of healing. "Harper Quinn," his voice cracked, but didn't waver. "Will you marry me?" Her heart pounded so hard she could feel it echoing in her ears. Harper brought a hand to her mouth, overwhelmed, the tears flowing freely. "Nathan, she looked at Ellie, at the house, at the man kneeling before her. Everything made sense. Everything had led here. I say yes." Nathan exhaled a shaky breath, like he'd been holding it for weeks. He slipped the ring onto her finger with breathtaking care, like he was placing it on something priceless. And when the metal touched her skin, he took her hand in both of his and kissed it softly. "I promise to love every wound of yours, to shelter you through every storm, to protect you and Ellie with every breath." Harper sobbed, overwhelmed, and leaned in to wrap her arms around him. Ellie clapped her tiny hands, not fully understanding what was happening, but laughing anyway, caught in their joy. From that day forward, the house once filled with untouched memories began to bloom. The old perfume was replaced by the scent of blueberry pancakes in the mornings. The once silent living room now held scattered toys and the soft hum of lullabies. The porch, once still, now echoed with laughter as Ellie learned to walk. Nathan's bedroom, once a shrine to loss, became a space alive with present love. Harper found safety. Nathan found healing. Ellie found a home. And together, they discovered that true love can be born from pain, grow in adversity, and heal wounds that once seemed permanent. Sometimes, when we are most lost, that's exactly where the person destined to find us appears. And so ends this story of love, loss, and new beginnings. Now I want to hear from you. What did you think? Leave your rating from 0 to 10 in the comments, like if this story moved you, and share it with someone who loves an intense romance. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next story. Before you go, I've prepared another beautiful, emotional tale that's even deeper and more touching. And I promise, it'll stay with you long after the final word. Go check it out now.